Okay, thanks, Keith. This is the Next Right Thing. I am Debbie Georgianni with Adam Blai. We are the co-hosts of The Spirit World, heard right here on Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. But Adam, it's summertime and everybody's got summer plans and they're going on vacation and school is out and all sorts of things are, everybody's trying to think about how, what are we going to do for this summer? Are we going to visit our grandparents? Are we going to visit friends? Are we going to go on a great vacation? But Adam, the next right thing is all about that, doing the next right thing. And it has always interested me with the area of when people plan for a vacation, they go to great lengths to plan the hotel and the airfare and the rental car and the sites they're going to see and even the restaurants they're going to frequent. And it's so fascinating to me, but then oftentimes they forget to pre-plan out their spiritual health, their spiritual life, going to mass, finding a church that has adoration, things like that, or the nearest church. So I think this is an important segment that we can do today on Morning Joy, just to remind our wonderful listeners that if you really and truly want to keep up your faith life, your spiritual life, grow closer to God each and every day, it's important that you bring this into your vacation summer plans. What do you say?
Totally, Deb. I've fallen victim to not planning and just assuming that it would work out and that I would find a mass, or like, for instance, sometimes you and I will take a trip to speak somewhere. And luckily the organizers make sure mass is set up and they're able to get us to that. But I have been in situations where it's like, I didn't look ahead and I went on masstimes.org, which is, I've had good success with that. I know it's not perfect, but that's a global site to look up, masses, but it's not perfect. And I showed up and it's like, the church is under renovation. This mass isn't available. That's the first thing is, plan ahead for that. But there's a couple reasons for that are pretty important. One is inertia. When you fall away from your spiritual life, when you fall away from mass, you fall away from prayer, and you say, okay, no, this is just fun time and I'm just going to forget about all that, you lose inertia, and it's easier to let it slip later. And when you get back, it's easier to say, I'm busy, or, this is a special occasion, so I can skip it. It's okay. That's not the case. We're required to go Sundays and the holy days of obligation. So it's not to be, a bummer about it, because it's not being a bummer. Like, if you have the ability to take a vacation, isn't it a great time to say thank you to God for the fact that you're alive? You have the means to take a vacation. You've got this world that you get to go explore.
Right. Oh, I agree with you. I love what you had to say. And, it's interesting to me, and I brought that up at the beginning of the segment, that it just kind of baffles me a bit because, and I even heard, and I will be honest, I've even been in conversation with some priests actually, and they'll say, well, if a person's on vacation and they're in a remote area and they can't get to mass, and I understand all the reasons and excuses and everything, I get that. But I have to tell you, Adam, I've been very fortunate. I've traveled all across the country. I've traveled internationally. I've never had an issue finding, a parish. And even so much, my husband and I went on a cruise. And I remember the first thing I did is I called the cruise organization, the company that was putting it together. And I said, is there going to be a Catholic priest on board? And it just so happens they had contracted with a Catholic priest. But I've even had some clergy say to me, well, that's okay. You're on a cruise, you can't get to. But I don't agree with that same kind of explanation, because I do think it leads to exactly what you're talking about, this idea that, well, okay, if I can chip away at this, if I can chip away at that, now this isn't important, it's not a priority. And let's face it, we saw it through the pandemic, okay? People went to online services, right? And now we still have a problem with filling the pews because people are used to that and they're saying, well, the church allowed it then. Why isn't it okay now? I find that to be problematic on so many levels. If we don't make our faith a priority, and, the words are, intentionality, have that intention to really make it a priority, I think it can lead to all sorts of spiritual deficiencies down the road. What do you say?
Yeah. And one thing to point out, when you truly can't make it to Mass, you can't make it to Mass. It's not a sin if it's out of your control, but we have something wonderful available to us, and that is like the Masses provided by EWTN and a few other services online where you can watch the Mass, participate as best you can, and pray for a spiritual communion at that time. And usually they will put the prayer for a spiritual communion on the screen, and this is often for older people or people that are in hospital beds and things like that. And if you're in those situations, don't forget, request that a Eucharistic minister visit you to bring communion if it's possible. It's not always going to be possible, but, like you said, Deb, make the effort. Let's not just assume it's not there. I have, been friends with or known about priests that really went above and beyond when somebody just made that request for that additional little bit of help, right. Either having a deacon visit or a Eucharistic minister or the priests themselves, or somebody says, I need confession, because there's no virtual confession. It can't be done over the phone. The priest has to be in the presence of the person physically. So don't be shy about asking about that. I've seen, a lot to be provided. But I just think, the inertia issue, like you said, with the pandemic, that was a big loss of inertia. And for me, at least, yes, it's a requirement, but for me, it comes back to gratitude. So if I'm alive, and I've got the blessing of having a job, I have things I can do, the means to maybe take a trip once in a while, I want to remember that, like, all that's from God. Like, I didn't create myself. I didn't give myself life. And the fact that on top of all that, you get to take a vacation. I think it's a wonderful time to be grateful and remember that that's all coming from God.
Absolutely. That's why, even the term holy day of obligation, things like that, I don't, the word obligation is like, oh, it's a heavy responsibility. It's a privilege. It's an honor. It's everything for us as Catholic Christians. And, you go back to the extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion for the homebound, they're doing a great ministry work. They're reaching those that cannot physically make it to Mass. And that is, you're right, it's a beautiful extension of what we offer in the Catholic Church. But I'm not trying to be critical, folks. I'm really not, because I know there's circumstances that may prevent people from going actually physically to Mass during a vacation time. But I have heard it, because I have been a religious education director for 25 years in the past. And I will tell you, I used to hear it all the time. Folks would take off of summer Bible school and all sorts of stuff. They said, we're going to go on a 12-day vacation and we're taking a vacation from church. They would say that. We're taking a vacation from church. I'm like, where did that, how is that really helpful? And I'm thinking that's not, but it's almost this strange dynamic. Like, well, if I'm on vacation and I'm, sitting at a pool or by a beach, then I don't, there's no need for me to go to the house of God. There's no need for me to worship God. That doesn't make sense at all to me. And it really disturbs me on so many levels, because I think, like you said, Adam, it carries into our daily lives. And then we could always default to those excuses, right? We could always say, well, this happened, so now I can't go to Mass, and this happened, so now I can't go to Mass. I would just say to folks, please just sit down and think about this. If you're planning a vacation, if you're planning a getaway, visiting friends, family, doing anything like that, going back for a reunion or something like that, or a wedding, please make sure you plan out ahead of time your Mass schedule. And you referenced masstimes.org, which I will tell you, I know a lot of truckers use. They love it. So a little bit more on that before we send it back to Keith.
I just want to encourage, there's another aspect to this. In my life, when I've traveled, some of the most memorable churches I've been in, or priests that I've met, have been when I'm traveling and I get the surprise of like, oh my gosh, this place is beautiful, and like a little bit about the history of it, or, this saint's major relics are here, and learn a little bit about them, learn a little bit about the priest or other people that you meet there. It has been a real treat. It's not just about fulfilling an obligation, but it's about it's a gift. Like, some I went to confession, around Divine Mercy Sunday over in Poland at the Divine Mercy Shrine. Now, of course, it's big on confession there, but the confessor, their skill was just so amazing. They were so, it was so deep, Deb. I'll always remember that. I don't remember many confessions. I've been to confession many times, but that one, that was a treat. So, sometimes God has things in store for you when you make that little bit of effort that can be really wonderful.
Oh, Adam, what you just said was golden to my ears, because I got to tell you, I have to share a similar experience that happened when Marty and I were on vacation. Very similar, and you are spot on. It's almost like, would you say this, Adam, that the good Lord drops these little golden nuggets for us, these treasures, these gifts, these jewels, when we do make that effort?
Yes, and the other thing I'm thinking of, I was speaking at a conference once, and it was being given in a church, but there was an adoration chapel in the same kind of building. I took the time, I was given the gift of spending some time with the Lord in adoration. Deb, that was one of the most powerful times of adoration I've had, and I think it's just what you just said. When you make the effort to give a little bit more, even if you're tired or you've been traveling or whatever it is, to choose to give a little bit more to God, I think that's when a lot of graces and blessings come.
Amen. God blesses you even more. He gives it back. Yeah, that's our God. Okay, so we're talking about making the effort to plan out your Mass schedule before you go on vacation or to that great event for this summer. And just a reminder, we're not trying to criticize or shame anybody into doing anything. We really just want to encourage you to really take on your faith in a very deep way. That's what Morning Joy is all about. We're on this road to holiness. We're on this road to sainthood. We really want to keep traveling in the proper right direction towards God. But Adam, you, I had a big smile on my face when you were telling us about this confession experience you had as you were traveling. Same thing happened to me and Marty when we were going to the Colorado River, right on the border of Arizona and Nevada. And we were at the Colorado River for a big event. It's so beautiful. And we went to Mass there on the Laughlin side of Nevada. So we crossed over from Arizona to Nevada, and we went to the parish there, and the priest was talking, and all of a sudden at the homily, and all of a sudden I'm going, oh my goodness, I wonder if this priest knew my uncle, because he was talking all about New Jersey and the time he spent in the diocese in New Jersey. And he started talking about all these things that I remembered as a kid in New Jersey. And I'm going, it can't be. It can't be that he knew my uncle, the priest. And at the end of Mass, of course, he was greeting everybody. And I went up and I said, Father, I need to ask you a question. Did you know my uncle, Father Sylvester Lavolsi? And he goes, Cy? Of course I did. I knew Cy. And it was like, oh, I felt like I was home. I felt like, and I just left there, Adam. I'm not joking. I left there, and the whole way back to the river, I was crying in the car. And I just said to Marty, can you believe that? What are the chances of that? From New Jersey all the way out to Nevada. And I'm thinking, it was like God saying to me, thanks for making the effort of going to the church in the nearby town, and here's the gift back. Same thing that you experienced in that way, and I believe that's the way our God works. Now, we don't do it for those reasons. I didn't do it expecting to get some special treat back, but that is the way He works, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't do things like to try to bargain with God or get God to do something nice for you. And sometimes it's, the saints talk about this. sometimes it's just periods of prayer and doing what you need to do. And they would call it like a dry time or an arid time. But we need to persevere through those. But I'll tell you, I really agree, Deb, when you're traveling, it happens more often than not in my experience. And that could be partly psychology, that we're really open to attending to our environment. We're in a new environment. But I think there's a lot of divine providence in that. And I really do think it happens more often than not when you're traveling. And in my experience, it's when you give that extra bit to God. I see the same thing on, in the exorcism world. There might be like a really difficult week and you're really tired and you don't necessarily want to go spend all afternoon praying and, wrestling around and, getting bit or whatever's going on. But you choose to do it anyway, and every single time you get lifted up by God. You have the energy to do it. It ends up being the most beautiful time of prayer in terms of being with Jesus, being aware of Jesus, seeing him respond to your prayers. And you walk out of there so affirmed and so filled that you went in run down and empty and wanting to be grumpy about it, but you choose to do it, and you walk out of there fulfilled. Wow. And I think the same thing happens when you make the effort, when you're traveling or when you're tired or when you don't want to do it.
Right.
Jesus, he was tired. There was things in his humanity, was tired and were difficult. And we know in the garden, he prayed, please, if this cup can be passed by me, but your will be done. In his humanity, he didn't want to do it, but he always said yes to the Father. And I think when we say yes to the Trinity, when we say yes to the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, there's blessings there.
Yeah. Amen to that. And Adam and I, we're not trying to say it like, look at us, we're so great. I mean, we're sinners. We work really hard at trying to live an authentic Catholic life, but it's there for all of us. Our faith is so incredibly rich and deep, and it's amazing. And it's unfortunate that people sometimes people tend to sit on the sidelines like they're observers of the faith. And it's really unfortunate because you're missing out on all of those graces and blessings and all the wonderful treats that God has planned. I mean, it's almost like this jumbo puzzle, Adam. When you get those like 500-piece puzzles, all the puzzle pieces start coming together, and then emerges this beautiful tapestry of an image that you say, "Wow, God, you are so incredible." Have you ever noticed that in my almost 59 years, that's the way it is in my life? I'm noticing that it's all coming together and it's making sense now.
Right, and that touches on something I see over and over in the cases that we work on is that Jesus is very aware of each of us, you, me, everybody that's listening to this. He's aware of you individually on a personal level. He loves you in particular as you and your unique life, and he has a goal and plans and joyful things that he wants to see realized in your life. And he is working with you. He is encouraging you. He is giving you graces. He's helping you when you're struggling. He's patient with you when you're making mistakes. You're not just on the sidelines. You are in a living relationship with him that he wants you to become more and more aware of over time as you draw closer to him. And often we don't realize that till maybe later in life, decades into life, and we start seeing it. But then you look back and you say, oh, I see what you were doing there. Yeah. This decade you were preparing me for this, and here's you were showing me that. And it's all building, and it builds over time because he's working with you. So, yes, don't be a passive observer of your faith. Your faith is not just going and doing your obligation and passively listening to some things and going through the motions. Your faith is a living relationship with Jesus where he is working with you through myriad people, through myriad situations, and primarily through the sacraments to draw you to heaven. So it's not just an obligation. It's a gift.
Wow. That was powerful. If you got something out of this segment, please share it with your friends and let us know if you appreciated this. I did. It brought back so many beautiful memories. Adam, thank you so much. And we'll be back tomorrow with the next right thing. But again, you can always catch us on the Spirit World this Saturday. And we're going to be talking all things Sacred Heart of Jesus, because June is the month of the Sacred Heart. And so we'll be going deeper into the devotion. I love the Sacred Heart. My mother was a big devotee of Sacred Heart with St. Margaret Mary Alacoque, and so we'll be talking so much about that. But for now, we're going to send it back for the rest of Morning Joy with our incredible host, Keith Downey.